Moving can be very stressful. We started out last month in our first series talking about moving your parents and how it is traumatic for them to move. Another traumatic component of moving is clutter. Imagine, being 40 years old or older when you're living in a house for 30 years, 40 years, maybe even 50 years. Imagine how much clutter that you will accumulate during that time. And we have a distinguished panel this morning that will help you with from 123 Junk, Capital Senior Solutions, and Wise Moves. And I hope I didn't forget anybody. And Everyday Money Management.
And Moyer Moving.
And Moyer Moving. Okay. So they're all here this morning. We'll be asking them questions and hope that you will learn something new about clutter this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura Quigley and Jan Brito this morning. And thank you for watching.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today, and welcome to Charles E. Smith's Smart Move series of seminars. I am Jan Brito, my business partner Laura Quigley, and we are Capital Senior Solutions. We are residential realtors that help folks sell their homes when the time comes, but we are advocates and educators for seniors, offering these types of seminars on a monthly basis, both at our venue and here at the Ring House and various other venues around town as guest speakers. What qualifies Laura and I to speak to these topics that are focused on older adults is a very rigorous year-long training program we went through that resulted in us getting a designation called Certified Senior Housing Professional. So we're very familiar with the myriad of details that these movers face at this time in their life. So we are also certified senior downsizing coaches because, as many of you know, you may have thought about downsizing yourselves, or maybe someone in your family has thought of it. But the first feeling that overcomes you is overwhelmed, wondering where to start, what to do first. So we are happy to help coach folks through that process. We even have a club called the Downsizers Club that meets monthly on Zoom, and it's a small group of people that's kind of like a support group where you share resources and challenges and successes. And these are people that could be 1 to 5 years away from making a decision. So we sort of help them through the process. Today, our topic is cut the clutter. Nobody has clutter, right? Nobody here has clutter in their house. Nobody needs to clear anything out. Things piled on the steps in the closets. You open the closet door, things tumble out, right? We all have that, let's face it. So today we are proud to have a very wonderful panel with us. We have Tracy Niro with Wise Moves, Collin Wheeler with 123 Junk, Leah Nichaman with Everyday Money Management, and Brenda Holt with Moyer Move Management. And we are going to discuss everything about decluttering and downsizing. So now I'd like to welcome the panel up, and we will get started. I'm just going to turn off the slides. Oh, they're off. How did that happen? All right, so take a seat. Our panelists take a seat. We've got 2 microphones there for you all to share. Welcome to our attendees on Zoom. All right, so let's start. We'll start with Tracy. I'll start by sharing your name, your organization, and your role as it relates to helping people declutter or downsize.
Okay, well,
You
again,
probably want to use the mic. Press and hold to make sure it's turned on.
testing, yes. My name is Tracy Niro. I'm the owner of Wise Moves. We are a concierge move management and home organization company. We've been in business for about 17 years now. Thank you, Laura and Jan and Ring House, for having us here today. In terms of my background, about 20 years ago, I used to do public estate sales, and I found a lot of common denominators. A lot of elderly people were wanting an estate sale because they thought that would be a great resource in terms of getting rid of their things, getting rid of some of their clutter. I loved doing that, but I also found that they had far more needs than just the sale. We continue to do what we call liquidation in today's market. We can advise as far as what's marketable, what isn't, but we merged into move management, the full scope of helping folks to transition into retirement communities like Ring House. So I'm delighted to be here. Got lots of good tips on decluttering.
Morning, I'm Leah Nichaman of Everyday Money Management. We are daily money managers, which means that we help people with their day-to-day finances, the mail, the bills, the insurance claims. We help them at this time of year to help them with their taxes. But when it comes to getting ready for a move, or even contemplating a move, or simply needing to find information, we become paper clutter experts, and we do a lot of helping people get rid of all those piles and file cabinets full of paper, particularly around and helping people with figuring out what to keep and what to throw away. And we'll talk a little bit more about that during the presentation.
I'm Brenda Holt with Moyer Move Management, and I've been in move management business for about 10 years now. I worked my way up, starting from packing and unpacking and decluttering and sorting. And our company does full service, soup to nuts. You could close your door in one house, open it up in another house, and hit a house beautiful. And we are fabulous at helping declutter, finding places to put things, and we are very thankful to be here today. So thank you.
All right, I'm Collin Wheeler, president of 123 Junk, and I'm honored to be here with these very knowledgeable people on the subject of decluttering and downsizing, because I'm the junk guy. I'm still trying to figure out why I was invited here, but hopefully I have some value to add on this panel. I got into this business because I was working as a move consultant, helping people as they were getting ready to relocate. And one of the things that I was constantly having conversations with people about is, what do I do with things that I don't wish to keep? So that led me down the path of exploring the junk removal industry. And the company is 123 Junk. We were named after the process in which we get rid of people's unwanted items. 1 is donate, 2 is recycle, and 3 is dispose. And I think that's relevant for what we're talking about today. So thank you for having me, and look forward to chatting more.
You don't give yourself enough credit, Collin. They do some wonderful things that I'm sure he'll be talking about as the presentation moves on. And one thing, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but I want to let people know this, because when they have things that they haul away that people don't want, that are good enough for someone else to use, they have a space in their warehouse, and charities will come there and pick up items from their warehouse and donate it to people who need them. So I just think that's a wonderful thing that they're doing. So you get credit for that. All right, so first question, when's the best time to declutter and for what reason? Why don't we start with Brenda on this one?
The best time to start? The best time to start would be as soon as you leave this room or leave this presentation, actually. There is, you don't need to be actually moving to declutter. I think you look at something and you say, yeah, I think it's time. We need to work on this. And to start the process is the step number 1, deciding, okay, I'm ready to do it. And I'm ready to make hard decisions on where things are going to be going. And sometimes you need a little bit of help, whether it's family or friends, or you want to hire someone like me or Wise Moves to help you sort through items, because it is difficult. So I'd say, and specifically, if you were planning, you're going to be moving down the road. Honestly, the sooner the better. It's never too soon. I've helped people start sorting and downsizing, getting rid of clutter years before they move.
By the way, I just want to mention that anytime if anyone has a question, just raise your hand. This is interactive. We'll also be monitoring the chat on Zoom, so feel free anytime you have a question, raise your hand.
So I agree. In our line of work, we get calls and it's, we need you out, and we need you out yesterday. And although we've adapted our business model to that, I think that as a general rule of thumb, the earlier the better. As you all know, moving is one of the most stressful experiences you'll have in your life. And sometimes just building some momentum and getting the process started is what you need. And once you see some wins, that motivates you to do more. And to kind of break down the decluttering process over time, it helps you sort of compartmentalize. You can go room by room, and often start with basements or garages or areas that are less used, and they can serve as sort of staging grounds for areas as you begin to declutter and stage your home in other areas of the house.
I concur on everything that's been said so far. Let's define clutter, because it can be collectibles, treasuries that, from travel. It can be family photos or even toiletries. There's many different facets of clutter. And, I know that when we first started in this business many years ago, it's like, what's this decluttering? We like to look at it very often as depersonalizing, but there's a mind full of memories to work through. And the sooner you start, the far less stressful it is. We often recommend starting with the low-hanging fruit, the easy decisions. It could be a junk drawer in the kitchen. It could be working in the basement, but you have to do it cautiously, have the appropriate support. But the easier decisions, and that spurs you on to the bigger, denser areas.
Okay, can everybody hear me now? So I'm jumping in. I'm Jan's business partner, Laura Quigley, and I have a couple of questions too. I wanted to add to your comments. Jan and I joke around about the joke of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's how we think about decluttering. I just recently did some construction at my home, and so I feel your pain because I've been trying to do that so that I don't put any of this stuff back in the beautiful space that I just created. So let's talk about what are some of the benefits of decluttering? Do people experience any short or long-term benefits from taking the steps?
Well, I'll just address the feelings that people tend to have about their paperwork. I don't think anybody's nostalgic about their Bank of America statement from 12 years ago. So I would say that the emotion that drives pile making and keeping all that paper is fear, as opposed to some nicer emotions like nice memories and those kinds of things. It's fear of not having an important piece of paper when you need it. If the IRS comes calling, you want to be able to, provide the information, and you don't feel confident getting rid of something. So I think one of the big benefits of getting some guidance on what to keep and what to throw away, and can really help people to throw away with confidence. And then, of course, guidance about what to shred and what's okay to recycle. And then you can even more throw away with confidence. And then what you keep with confidence is the stuff that is the important stuff. So I think that that's one of the big benefits of decluttering, your paperwork. And then if you're planning to move to a much smaller place, you want room for nice stuff, not file cabinets worth of years of paperwork. And so I think that allowing you to move about in your life more free of those file cabinets, I think is a huge benefit.
Yes. Just a quick question. How many years back recommend that you say?
Well, it depends on what it
Please
is.
repeat the question, please.
Oh, how many years back should we keep things? It really depends on the type of record, and I have a handout in the back, and I assume Jan can make it available to people attending. And it's just some basic record retention guidelines. And we also, for related to taxes, we suggest that people ask their tax preparer. If you don't have a tax preparer and you do your own taxes, at least 4 years and most people think around 7. Some people keep 10. And when I say keep, I mean keep the tax return and the backup information that went with it, all those 1099s and all that stuff. I will say, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but digitizing is a wonderful thing nowadays. So we can talk about how could you possibly keep all that information without actually having the actual paper. Yes.
If you had a small business that you ran for 30 years or so, and you had all these physical files that you kept through the years. And it's your own business, I feel that myself, it's your own business. And you kept all these files, hundreds of files. And you haven't digitized that could be a colossal and time-consuming event. So how do you go about choosing what to do? And all these cases require HIPAA regulation. So what do you do in a case like that?
Well, I'd say I'm not an attorney, so that I can't necessarily tell you exactly what to do. So the question, let me just repeat it, was if you've had your own business, it sounds like it was a business that involved private health information, right? You have a lot of records that are in paper folders, 30 years worth maybe. What do you, how should you handle that? And to digitize it would be, quite expensive to digitize all of it. So I would say consult with your attorney or a business attorney who can tell you the particular regulations around your type of business, because there are some very stringent rules around healthcare providers and what they have to keep and how long they have to keep it for and what kind of notifications they need to make to their former patients and that type of thing. So I definitely think that just asking a lawyer, and you could do some Googling around it too, but I'd then say confirm with a lawyer who will tell you how long you need to keep certain types of records. And then you may end up hopefully with a subset of all those files and records that you might want to digitize. Generally speaking, it seems like digital versions of most things are good enough. They're just as good as paper versions in many cases.
So I have a question. Tracy, I'll ask you. Can you hear me? Okay. So based on your experience, what are some of the challenges or obstacles people face when they first start to tackle decluttering?
It's mostly emotional because it is very overwhelming, and an emotional attachment to what it is. As I said earlier, what is declutter in your home? It may very well be attached to sentimental value. It's again, not only a field of memories, but it's also a matter of stamina. So it does really go back to getting started sooner than not. It gives you the opportunity to reach out to family members, which we have found over the years that the kids don't necessarily want what you have. They have their own lifestyle, their own home. They don't want to bring it to their home. There may be some special things that your family needs to consider. And I recommend setting a deadline, with the family, because we have very often found the family drags their feet. May it be because it's emotional for them as well. They go into the home, they see their lifelong memories there, and it's hard for them to make decisions. But also they don't want to hurt your feelings, so take a stand, set a deadline with loved ones to come and select what they have. The challenge is letting go, it really is. But you can also take a snippet of your memories. Let's say, for example, when you look at the floor plan, that's the foundation of what you're going to be able to take with you. You might wonder, well, I'm not doing formal dining, so do I really need that china cabinet? Will it fit? Believe it or not, we find very often they do. And you can repurpose that for memories, not just the dishes, and the crystal that you no longer use, but maybe some significant memories. So repurposing items as well as working on your floor plan is really going to help.
We have a question in the chat.
Again, the question is regarding scanned copies. Is a scanned copy good enough for the IRS? I believe so. Again, your accountant is a much better person to tell you what their experience has been. Generally, our business doesn't take us through audits with our clients very much, but most accountants have been through lots of them. And so I think, and the IRS, there's sort of the official rules that the IRS follows, and then there's sort of what's the IRS like as people, like how do they handle things when they show up to audit? And so I think asking somebody who has more experience with whether or not they will take it, but my general understanding is a scanned copy is as good in most cases. Okay, so what do you recommend, regarding where to keep your digital files and if you want to keep them in multiple places? So I would say that nowadays people mostly rely on cloud storage. And you might choose a cloud storage provider, and this is where you'll have to do your research, whether or not you feel comfortable with Dropbox or the Google Drive, or you want to use something. And if you're doing research, you might want to use a cloud storage application that professionals who need a lot of security around the information they keep use. So what do lawyers use? What do accountants use? What do health professionals use? And some of them may use programs that are proprietary to their industry, but there are a lot of cloud storage applications out there. And so in my business, we use something called ShareFile, and now it's called Citrix Files because Citrix bought it. And we might pay a little more money for it. It's not going to be free, but I think that it's mostly used by accountants, so that makes us feel more secure. So there's lots and lots of reading you could do on the internet if you wanted to understand what are some of the risks associated with cloud storage, but that's the easiest place to keep things where you could then, you or your loved ones or whoever you want to give access to can access it from anywhere.
Thank you, Leah. I know Collin had something he wanted to say before I go to the next question in the chat.
Not sure I can remember it, but
We were talking about challenges.
yes, yeah. What we see is one of the challenges is just lack of understanding of what happens at who to call at what point in the process and where do you begin. It creates a sort of a paralysis of decision making and creates procrastination, and that only adds to the stress that we were talking about earlier by not getting started early. So my recommendation is talk to your realtor. Realtors tend to be sort of the quarterback of the process and have lots of resources to direct you to folks like us, and plenty of resources outside of companies like us to help you sort of better navigate and know when to call whom and at what stages, different services that you might require in order to complete the downsizing process might require more lead time. There might be, there's lots of steps to the process, and putting one before the other sometimes doesn't always make the most sense. So I think it just starts with education and just kind of having an understanding of whom to call first and who to bring into the project, and that can really help you lay out a game plan so that you can get that first step going.
Very valid point, Collin. And as those of you who have been to our seminars before know that we all are always preaching, start early and make a plan. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to add too that with the challenges from decluttering, I think people, they look at their things and they think, what am I going to do with it? Where am I going to start? How am I going to get it out of here? So it just, with all these questions, they just don't, it just, like you said, paralysis. But when you get a move manager or a declutterer to come in, they start you on the process. And I think one of the best benefits is once the things start decluttering, you see what's there, and then you can rearrange your room. Like we had somebody who didn't even move. They just wanted to get a fresh look in their house. So when you declutter, you see things with different eyes and you can repurpose things. And it's like getting a whole new home. So, and then it brings joy. That's the other part. When you're all done, it's the stress is so relieved. You can physically see it on people, and it just it creates happiness. It's hard, but it's worth it in the end.
We have another chat question. How difficult could it be to eliminate sterling silver servings and silver plate and china? Who wants to take that?
So we do actually sell quite a bit of sterling. First of all, people often wonder, is it sterling or not? So by law, it has to say sterling on it. If you have a place setting, look at the back of like the fork or the spoon, and we can help identify that. But right now we're finding that, it's been sitting in its box, it's been sitting in the china cabinet, and really it can offset the value of what you're spending to move. In fact, sterling, jewelry, and coins are often the most significant items that can bring value. People think in terms of their furniture, the bigger items bringing value, but oftentimes it's the smaller. So sterling, jewelry, and coins, there are professionals that can buy these items from your home, and sterling is sold by that day's value. So by law, you would be quoted the actual value that they can purchase it for. We have contacts and resources for this. But, as far as other items, I think that, there's a big part of the resale market is supply and demand. So when you think about the china, the crystal, things like that, there's a lot of that on the market. So very often that does not bring as much value, but the sterling does.
And also, I wanted to add, there are companies that buy silver plate. There's a local company that does. You need it. They sell silver and silver plate by the pound. So there's, even if you Googled it, there's a company in Vermont that will, you weigh your items, they'll send you a label, you box it up, you send it to them, and they give you whatever it's worth. So I used to think the silver plate was worth nothing, but if you have enough oomph and weight, then it might be something to explore too. You're not going to get rich off of it, but it, like Tracy said, it helps offset your move.
Just one other thing about the plate. Often if you auction these items, it's decorators that like to buy it. So they use it for staging, they use it for decor.
This might be a good time to bring up next month's seminar right here at Greenhouse called Personal Property, Things to Know About Valuing, Keeping, Tossing, and Selling. Our speaker is Daniel Sanders, owner of For Sales Limited, FOUR Sales Limited. And that is something you don't want to miss if you've got stuff that you think might have value. So I was going to ask, what are some of the reasons folks accumulate so much stuff? But I think you've all addressed that. A lot of it is emotions, sometimes fear. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I was going to go into what happens when people let clutter get to the point of over clutter, like hoarding. How do you deal with a hoarding situation?
I know we have a question in the audience here.
I wanted to ask, a lot of people who move here are from somewhere else. From other here. What kind of assistance can we get from afar? I think about my mother-in-law's house, which we're working on, which is in Florida, and obviously here. You have contacts in other places that you can direct us to?
So I know if it's for an elderly person, there is an association called the National Association of Senior Move Managers. And so very oftentimes, if somebody is moving here, we will work with somebody that we've worked with before, a trusted person, and we work out, each of us have our own different systems on how we like to organize and move and help people declutter. So we'll work alongside, long distance, with a move manager.
Works with a realtor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we can also refer you to a realtor in the area where you're dealing with in Florida if you need. And we have realtors who have the same designations that we do around the country that can be a resource and project manage for you, just like we would do it here.
Thank you.
So the question about what to do when overcluttering becomes a problem like hoarding. Who wants to tackle that one?
I think, sorry, but I think with, there is a limit level of above and beyond hoarding where you can't emotionally release things. And then there's a point where I go into many homes and people say, oh, I'm such a hoarder. I look and I think, no, you are not. You aren't. So everyone's level and belief of what is extreme clutter is different. And we just start step by step again, room by room, drawer by drawer, get a timeline, which is important so that say, okay, we think this is going to take X amount of time for this room. And just go, and also if we feel like it's over our heads and you need special care, and there are people out there that specialize in helping hoarders declutter, downsize, move too. So it's also know what our limitations are and what's best for the person that needs help.
What are those people called that specialize in that area? If someone wanted to pursue that? I mean, is there a category of?
We have a couple of resources that we refer to, and I can let you know and give you those names. Yeah.
So I think it's also important to recognize the difference between chronic disorganization and hoarding. I think those are, hoarding is, classified as a mental disorder. And of course, there's a scale of it, but typically hoarding is more of an emotional thing, and it's unwillingness to get rid of it or inability to get rid of it. Chronic disorganization, on the other hand, is you either don't have the time or energy or strength or desire to get rid of it, or you don't have the right resources. So the approach to those two categories is a little bit different. And then there's just, having a little bit of a mess. So there's various levels of that, and I think each one is approached differently. In a hoarding situation, something we get asked about a lot. There was a show on TV, I'm sure you have all seen it, Hoarders. And then there were some spin-offs from it. And the assumption in my line of work is that that's the world that we live in, and every job that we do has some variation of that, which is obviously not the case, but those types of situations obviously usually require additional help. And there's associations. There's an association specifically for hoarders, a task force, a hoarding task force in the Washington, D.C. area. There's professional organizers who their niche is to focus specifically on folks with hoarding tendencies to help them through that process. So whether this is relevant for you or somebody, whether they're downsizing or whether they just have hoarding tendencies, there are a lot of resources out there. There's industry built around this condition that people have. And it's usually a slow process, and it's an emotional process. And for a company like us, as the muscle to come in and schlep some things out of people's homes, in the case of hoarding, that's probably a little premature. That could be received as very offensive to somebody who is hoarding if somebody is treating their stuff without the respect that they believe that it deserves. So
Very important point. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. Oh, try another question. Yes.
Hi. Thank you all for this. And I just wanted to mention, having worked in aging health for 30+ years in Montgomery County, I am aware that the city of Gaithersburg has a really wonderful resource and task force that they provide for hoarding issues. I've always been really, really impressed with that. And just, I think also to mention too that, as we age and as, mobility, right, cognitive ability becomes a little more challenging. I mean, that is when we see the accumulation. And when you were talking a moment ago about the challenges, and I think with the question about hoarding, that it is that emotional attachment, right, that we have. And my understanding with hoarding is, as you said, Collin, I think it just reaches like this exponential point. But one of the questions I have is, how do you help people feel like their accumulation is going somewhere where somebody can make use of it? Because I think that's one of the things that I've always heard over the years. Like, it's just still in such good condition, or it's da-da-da-da-da. I just don't want it to end up in a junk pile. So
wish I had captured all that on the microphone, but if you could somehow.
Do we have another seat at
rephrase.
the panel table for her?
Bring her up. The question is, how do we, guide people through the process of getting rid of things and really understanding that they can be repurposed elsewhere? I want to say there's a little bit of hoarding in everybody. Again, could be a collection, memories, whatever it may be. I like decorative pillows and realized I moved that I had so many, it was ridiculous, so there's a little bit of that in everyone. But the beauty of working with the professionals is that there are so many resources of these items that, everything from mattresses to higher end items that can be repurposed, whether they're sold, whether they're donated. The landfill is the last resort. That is the last resort. As Kevin said, 1, 2, 3, donations, recycle, dispose, so we first look at what you want to keep, what might go to loved ones, is there value in items that are left over, and donation. So very often that can make a significant difference in the clutter.
I'm gonna come with the microphone, hold on. These are good questions. I want to make sure everybody on Zoom hears them. So, I'm not ready to move yet, but I finally decided to take the challenge and go downstairs into the basement, look at some boxes. I moved my mother, meanwhile passed away like 25 years ago, and her stuff is still in boxes. And all of a sudden I realized what use of it is it to be sitting in boxes? So is there somebody who can come on a more casual basis? I can spread it all out on my dining room table. I feel like maybe it's an antique roadshow, and somebody could just tell me, this you could sell, and here's where you can go. This you can donate, and this has no purpose. That's where I'm stuck right now. How do I know what these collectibles are worth and where they can go?
Exactly. And that's what we refer to as a free consultation. There are folks that will come and assess those evaluations for you. So we can put you in touch with either the professionals here or auction house folks that they are the experts in today's market, especially. But it should not cost you anything to have someone come and take a look at these items. Sure, yes.
I mean, I think we all have different types of resources. There are people that are called like estate pickers, and they'll come in and they'll pay cash right then and there and take the things away, and they can give you an idea of value also. And a lot of times a move manager that's sitting with you and sorting can say, yes, no, this is for estate sale, this needs to go to donation. So we've seen a lot of it, and we kind of get a feel of where the market is, but things change. People used to say, oh, rugs aren't getting what they used to, but if you go on an auction site now, it's starting to creep up again. So if you get some at this present time.
I want to add, this isn't necessarily my area of expertise, but first of all, Daniel Sanders and Ford Sales, that upcoming seminar, I highly recommend that you attend that. He's a wealth of knowledge around the value of stuff. I know we were talking about earlier, sometimes the unlikeliest of items in your home have the most value. And an example is, I'm on the very early side of the millennial generation. Just made it in, but my generation, is the IKEA furniture generation. The heavy dark wood furniture that's in my parents' house is of no interest to me and my friends. And if my parents tried to pawn their furniture off on me, I would not take it. So that's a difference of preference. It doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It just means it doesn't have value to someone like me. So I think it's also important to consider. A lot of people go into the concept of getting rid of your stuff, especially as it relates to donating, is, well, I'm going to donate my stuff because this will have value for the charity that I decide to give it to. Charities are also businesses, they're nonprofit businesses, but they need to make money. And in order to make money, and obviously they're all set up differently, they need to have a end recipient for the items that are being donated. So I think sometimes there's a tendency, I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of myself in the question. There's a tendency to assume that by donating your stuff to a charity, you've satisfied everything that that charity needs and you've done good for everybody. And in fact, now it's the charity's problem. So bringing in the right resources will help, hopefully kindly and with respect and dignity, sort of educate you a little bit more on, what's in right now as far as style and furniture and jewelry and household belongings in general. And you might be surprised, as I have been over the years, even as things have evolved, that what's valuable might surprise you. So I just think that's an important thing. We all have a lot to learn probably from someone like Daniel Sanders and probably the people on this panel about one other quick example, just to put a statement on this. There was a job that we did where there was this beat up Louis Vuitton chest. Now we all know Louis Vuitton probably, and it's a pretty high-end name, but this chest was dented and marked up and had a few miles on it. And the client asked about what we should do with it. We connected them with an estate sales company, and the answer was, well, we'll see what we can do with it. And this thing was pure trash to me. Other than the Louis Vuitton name, it was a 1950s chest or whatever, sometime back in that era. I would have seen it as trash. They ended up selling it for $5,000. So, I guess the value is in the eye of the beholder, and there's people that know how to spot that value. I guess that's my point.
I don't know who here is familiar with the show Monk. He played a detective. Okay. There was an episode on Monk with his brother, and his brother was classified as a hoarder. He walked into his house and he had really neat piles of newspapers. That was his collection, but it was neat piles. It was strewn all over the place. It was neat piles. So my thought is, how does one differentiate between a hobbyist and a hoarder? Because here, his hobby was collecting newspapers. Someone else's might be comic books or books or toys or whatever. And it fills up a house, whatever it is. So how does one differentiate? Because there is emotional value in all of this to that person.
There's an actual hoarding scale. Okay, so remember I said earlier, there's a little bit of hoarding in each of us. We all have our thing. The extreme is what really is more of the mental disorder. It's one thing for him to be attached to newspapers. I think in our service, we help folks to understand, if they're moving and he can't take all those newspapers with him, to pick the more significant ones. And is there value in the papers that he has saved? Is it sentimental? Does he reread them? Or does he feel that eventually they'll have some value? So, educating about whether or not there's value in what they've collected really does help. Also, the extreme hoarding situations that we've talked about are very obvious. I met with a woman recently and, we stood outside for 20 minutes talking before she allowed us to come in, because they know that they're hoarders and they know that it's a disorder. So, but she had inspiration to sell the home. And so, it's a matter of identifying, where you're going next. Are you taking these items with you? I brought up the floor plan because, again, once the floor plan is set, and professionals can help with a floor plan. That's the roadmap. That's the basis of what you can take with you. So,
I'm gonna jump in just for a second about the floor plan. Because for me and a lot of the clients we work with, getting excited about where you're going makes it so much easier to let go of where you've been. So having a floor plan to see how this new location, this apartment or condo, how it's gonna look and feel and how I can bring my treasures with me, the things that are important to me and how they're gonna fit is so important. And so you get excited about that. And the next thing you know, like the stuff that you're not taking is much easier to move on from. Does that make sense? I'm going to shift gears a little bit and ask about money managers. How can money managers help with this whole process? And then the second part of that is, this is something we run into often, important documents. That we can't find them, that the homeowners can't find them, the kids can't find them. Like, do you have any suggestions around that?
Yes, thank you. So a daily money manager can help in a number of ways, and I think that paper clean out is one of them. And I do want to mention whether it's just a paper clean out or any of these situations where you're hiring somebody to help you to essentially get rid of something that's hard for you to get rid of. It involves trust. And so the key to having a helper, whether it's a paid helper or a friend, a neighbor, a relative, is that once you establish that, and the person can trust that you're not going to violate their well-being, their mental well-being or their physical well-being in any way, you're going to ask permission, you're going to check in with them, you're not going to do anything that they would feel uncomfortable with, then the process really can move forward. And so, you know, we've had that establishing trust in our business is critical, and we try to do it, you know, just in the first, you know, month or two of meeting somebody. So I think, so that's not specifically about daily money managers, but I think that is the key to helping people get rid of stuff, is that if they're going to work with somebody, that they really trust them. But with regard to helping with sort of getting ready for a move, so whether if it's a move, let's say to a senior living community, a lot of times, or if you're buying into something, you have to provide financials. And so there's usually a form to fill out. And one thing that daily money managers are very good at is figuring out where the assets are. What have you got? What are the assets? What are the debts? Where is it held? And sort of putting that into a document, a spreadsheet. This is everything that you have. And that will help to whether, you know, that will help to fill out that form about what you have so that you can qualify for whatever it is that where you're planning to go. So we help a lot with figuring out, often by sorting through paper, what accounts do you have? What insurance policies do you have? Those kinds of things. So marshaling assets, I guess, is one of the things that daily money managers do. And then, of course, being having a good feel for what can be thrown away and what you need to keep. And then if you find that you don't have the car titles for your cars and you want to sell them, or you need to retitle them in the new state where you're moving to, right? So we generally know the ins and outs of certainly the Maryland and the DC Motor Vehicle Administration. And I guess my folks in Virginia know how to deal with Virginia, how to get a duplicate car title, how to get a marriage certificate. I had to research that for somebody out in Queen Anne's County. Turns out it's $5 and a form, you know, to fill out. But you know how to use Vital Check, which is if you're missing a death certificate or a birth certificate, it's about $50 for them to do. If you put in the key information that they need, Vital Check can send it to you in a week to 10 days, you know, or how to get in touch with the Department of Vital Records in your, you know, where you live. And also important things like if you've changed your name, if you were adopted. We have a client who didn't tell her family she was adopted. She's 85. And now she needs proof of the fact that she was born to someone else and that she got adopted, et cetera. So trying to get adoption papers has been challenging. I can't tell you the details because I'm not the one in my company who did it, but you never know if somebody's had a previous marriage, even if it was very brief, knowing who they were married to, what dates, for how long. So some of that sort of certain historical information might be important in your situation. And so that's the kind of thing that a daily money manager might know and be able to help you with.
Okay, we have a few more questions in the chat. Are any of the speakers members of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals? And do you work with non-moving related reorganization and decluttering?
Yes, we are also members of that association. So my staff have had training in professional organization, storage solutions, and very often we do work with folks that are not moving, that want to get reorganized in their home. We also are qualified, certified as aging in place professionals. But we are very often, you'll find that the National Association of Senior Move Managers are also qualified as professional organizers.
Okay, let's see. What are your respective hourly fees? And I'm sure that's going to be a range, but how best you can answer that.
Now we start with 1, 2, 3, jump. How do you guys work?
So we charge based on volume. It's not based on weight. It's not based on man hours. It's based simply on how much space the items occupy on the bed of your truck. So it's prorated. A full truck, we say, is about 10 sofas worth of space. Obviously, sofas vary in size, so that analogy can't be taken too literally, but we can prorate typically down to about 2 sofas is our minimum threshold. In terms of pricing, there are factors that influence the price. If it's a high-rise building versus a single-family home, there might be a little bit, obviously, the scope is a bit different. There's other factors. Sometimes if there's unique disassembly involved with, weight equipment in the basement, or, we'll even take a swing set or a hot tub as outdoor items. So those are typically handled a little bit differently, but it's based on weight, or excuse me, it's based on volume, not weight. And it's based, typically a full truck would put you somewhere in the neighborhood of, depending on those circumstances, $800 to maybe $1,000. That includes fuel, labor, disposal fees, and then any attempts to make it donating or recycling any of the items. So it's a flat fee based out, and it's upfront. So we don't give you the price after we're done. In fact, it's in most cases we can narrow down the price, usually to $100 or $150 by phone. We send out a team. They take a look at it. They give you a definitive price, a not to exceed price, and then we complete the job and honor that price the entire way through. As long as the scope of services doesn't change, the price will remain. So.
Well, we do offer 1 hour free consultation when we come out, get an idea of what the scope of the job might be. Hourly rates, we work in tandem with our movers. So if for our organizer, we generally are about $75 an hour. It's discounted senior rate. Our movers rates are about, they're $80 an hour, but for seniors, we discount to $75 an hour. And I differentiate between the two because you would have a move manager come sit with you, declutter, work, and to get rid of things, but then we need the muscle, like 1, 2, 3 junk, or a mover to come and pick things up. So that's why I said that there are 2 different rates, but in general, $75 an hour.
What's the name of your company? As you
Oh, it's with Moyer Move Management.
Okay, so my company is Everyday Money Management. Now, daily money managers, my company included, most of what we do generally is month in, month out, helping people with managing their personal finances. The getting ready for a move, or some projects like a big paper clean out and that kind of thing, if they're not part of the long-term one. So can do a lot of that at a different rate. So the rate for regular money management services is $140 an hour. And most people need anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a month of our time. So generally, we're helping people with that kind of thing when they are truly cognitively impaired. They really need help so that they don't get scammed or make a lot of mistakes, et cetera, for safety reasons. But anyway, so that's that service. The helping people with their paper clean out, just pending, it'll be somewhere in the $50 to $100 range, depending on who I send to do it. And the way we often like to work with paper cleanouts is to provide the guidance, come in and see what you've got. So maybe you're paying us for an hour or two of time to give you guidance and then homework, right? And the challenge, of course, is being able to get it done in between. So we just tackle maybe one box, one file cabinet, and we'll say, here's the rule. If it's before 2013, bank statements. And so we give you your own personalized record retention guidelines, basically based on the kinds of things that you've got. And it's up to you to make the piles and put them in. So that way, and then we encourage people to bring in a trusted friend or a family member, and we'll train them to say, if they're going to help you and do it with you, we'll help them with what these are the guidelines, et cetera. So that's one way that we can sort of provide a lot of the expertise that we have without having to be there with you every single hour and charge you for it. So it does require that you're able to bring some of your own labor to it.
So years ago, we used to charge a lower hourly rate, but there were additional fees in terms of travel, other fees. And we found competitively that most of the move management companies were doing the same. And that it's kind of difficult to really share that, with clients. It can be confusing for elder folks, especially. So we did a financial assessment and just came up with $85 an hour. It's a flat fee. There are no additional fees. So when you do look at professionals, move management companies, you have to be conscientious of the fact that very often there are additional fees. So for us, it's a flat rate across the board for everyone, even myself, and we're very hands-on. The other thing I advise folks is that if you're looking for a move management company like ours and like Moyer, we are A+ accredited with the National Association. So it's a very rigorous program to become accredited. So I recommend that you do look for someone that is A+ accredited.
Repeat the name of your company.
Thank you. Our company is Wise Moves.
This might be a good time for us to mention, and Laura and I are the realtors in the group, that when you list your home with us, we will provide a complimentary 3 hours of a senior move manager, because we so believe in the value of it. And this gives you a chance to illustrate to the home seller the value that they do bring, and then you can make the decision if you want to use more hours. We are Capital Senior Solutions, yes.
Yes, WISE moves, plural. For our retirement communities like Ringhouse, we do offer complimentary floor plan as well. Because I've stressed the importance of that, it really helps our clients. Yes, question.
So is your company the kind of company that, say I was moving my mother from New Jersey to here, the moving truck arrives, you do the unpacking, the setting up, the getting rid of the boxes? Is that the kind of business, is that the kind of work that you do?
Absolutely. We do collaborate long distance moves like that. The work actually starts prior to your mother moving though. We talk with you, or if you're collaborating with another move manager, getting a visual. We use a lot of photographs. Fortunately, with the technology, we can communicate back and forth and really get a handle on what's coming in. We can coordinate the move itself. But yes, we would be in receipt of the trucks, and we can do the unpacking and setting up, organizing, storage solutions. hanging art, making the bed. So we like to call it the reveal when your mother comes into the apartment or condominium. We're all excited, it's like she's coming down the hallway,
We had my mother's here. already,
Yes.
And we did that, and we had a company in New Jersey who did the side, that
Yes.
side, the going through, the cleaning, the packing, the moving company, and then we had a company here who was waiting at the door for the truck and had it all ready so that when my mother walked in the door.
Right, it's like HGTV. It's exciting because, there's nothing more gratifying than what we do, really, helping folks through this transition. Yes.
Can you speak a little bit to clothes, raincoats in Florida, things like that? I'm thinking about closets that I can visualize far away. Lots of clothes.
Most of the clothes, it has, and if you want to consign resale clothing, it has to be within 5 years, really in 2 years in order to resell. A lot of the younger kids will sell things on Poshmark and they even eBay. And honestly, I've tried just to see what it's like for different clients of mine. And it's a lot of work for very, very little return. Some of the higher end items, there are good consignment places that will take them. I've even sent fur coats recently to auction houses. You are not going to really get a lot, but they will take them. I always tell people, expect to get 10 to 20% of the original value. So you're not going to get rich off of these things, but at least you'll get a little bit back from them.
There are hands in the grave that control how you move forward.
We give you permission not to warehouse these things. So,
It's really hard, and really to go back to the clutter is, I think we all grew up where we had to save things because we didn't know whether or not we were going to be able to get them again. And then we started creating collections of these things, and then we started getting inherited and have to be the caretakers of these things. And then on the flip side, like Colin said, our kids are not collectors. They plug into Amazon and they get what they want the next day. They don't want these old things that we held on to. So in some ways, it gives us the permission to release them. It's all right, and let it go, and people will appreciate it. And just very quickly, we had an old sewing machine. We donated it. I got a picture back from an Afghani refugee with her 6 kids around it, and she was working from home using this sewing machine. So if you think your things are going to get repurposed for a good reason, they absolutely will. Let them go. Let somebody else enjoy them.
I want to add on to that, since we're talking about value and things like that, and oftentimes our clients will say to us, I'm going to do an estate sale. That's how I'm going to get rid of my stuff. I'll do an estate sale. You guys have any thoughts about that?
Are you talking about a yard sale or?
Yard sale, yeah, a yard sale. I'm doing it myself. I'm going to open the garage door. I'm going to put out tables. I'm going to sell all the china. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
If you have help and you have time, and aren't going to have your feelings hurt by when people going through your things, you can do that. But it takes a lot of emotional resources to be able to do it, and you also sort of need a little bit of help because you have to figure out the best time of year. How are you going to advertise it? Is your neighborhood association going to allow you to even have a yard sale? So it could be a good idea, but it does take a lot of mental energy.
I'd just like to add about the yard sale, just from a personal perspective. We had a little yard sale for the first time. And the best part about it is I met a lot of neighbors, right? Because I wasn't moving, and that was lovely. And I also gave away a lot of stuff. Like, it had a price tag on it, but if somebody seemed to want it and then they wanted to know if I'd take a lower price, I just let it go, because the joy for me of being the giver and watching the face of the receiver was just priceless. I just had a really good time, but it was a lot of work to haul all that stuff upstairs and out of the basement, etc. So, and we made a few $100. It was not, again, it turned out to not be about the money in the end, which I think you have to go into that, and you have to go into a yard sale and even into an estate sale sometimes that way, because your things will be sold for much lower than you think they're worth. So you must let go of sort of that transactional way of looking at your stuff. I bought it for $50. How is it that we're selling it for $2? You know, those kinds of things.
Having managed public estate sales myself, they are a lot of fun, but there are bylaws that I'm sure your next presentation, that gentleman will certainly be able to elaborate the success or the process of the actual estate sales. But nowadays, we no longer do estate sales, and we use auction houses for marketable items, donations for those items that need to be donated. Estate sales are not as popular these days, especially with COVID. So there's been a huge decline in the success of the public estate sales. But also with technology, the auction houses, can reach a multitude of people with their computers. So it really, it's amazing what can sell. It could be a pair of sunglasses that you didn't expect would sell for anything. But they take quality photos and they reach the masses on their computers. So we're advocates for the auction houses.
Yeah, I would say from our perspective, the emotional, mental, physical wear and tear of the yard sale is not worth it for our clients. It's an emotional time of life anyway. If you are thinking of like you're moving to your next place, you're leaving this long-term home. So I really like these approaches much better for our clients. Like I said, physically, emotionally, mentally to do that.
And there's also when you're talking about new technology, there's a company called Max Sold where they do online auctions. So you could actually do it inside your home. You take the pictures inside your home. Everyone comes in one day and picks things up. So you can either take it to an auction house or do something like that. There's lots of options.
Tell me that site again.
It's called Max Sold, MAXSOLD. And these are all just resources. We're not getting any kickbacks from any of them. We just want to help our people get clutter out of their house.
Would you recommend? I was just thinking while you.
It's a resource. It's one of the.
I would look to see what's out there so that it could help me sort of evaluate what I have.
There are a good resource. And also I want to say about the yard sale. I tell people sometimes, like you were saying, have a free sale. Just bring it out and have a free sale, put it on your listserv and get it out that way too.
Yeah. People will come.
What is the service you've been using?
Buy nothing.
Buy nothing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is that part of Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have more chat questions. What is the resource the lady mentioned regarding hoarding? I think Tricia, referring to your comment about the Gaithersburg resource with hoarding.
Yeah, and I was just checking, to see if I have it in my phone.
We'll look that up, and if we can get it, we'll put it in the chat. City of Gaithersburg. Okay.
I also have some information about that. There's the Institute of Challenging Disorganization that, can provide consultation.
Wonderful. We understand that good furniture doesn't have a lot of value. Your idea of repurposing is new to us. Thank you. What happens to good furniture that doesn't get a fair value? And I have a question for you guys about a wider circle. I know their goal is to end homelessness, and they often help provide household goods for families that are starting anew. Are they very welcoming with old furniture, or what's the status of that, of them accepting donations of furniture?
Remember, they're usually furnishing apartments. They want smaller scale furniture, and a lot of the times we're downsizing with bigger pieces. Also, because of COVID, they're a little more particular about the pieces they take, and sometimes it takes about 6 weeks to get an appointment for them to pick things up.
Will they allow you to drop off?
You have to call in advance. They want to see exactly what's coming into their warehouse.
I know that a lot of people that I know who have moved have expressed that it's so hard to get an appointment with them
then if you're at that point where you're ready to get rid of things, it can take months. And yet I went to a thing that the owner of Wider Circle, and it's so, they felt so good because of his goals, but the time frame is often unrealistic.
Right. So
Like
this,
you need to sleep in a bed, or you need a table and chairs, you can't wait another 3 months if you're not taking it with you.
We also partner with Habitat for Humanity. We find that they're much more responsive. I can certainly provide the contact there that can help coordinate. Elena Biagas is wonderful. They have a tremendous program where they sell the items at their Restore location in Rockville, and they take 90% of household items. Even where there's maybe a kitchen remodel, they'll take the kitchen cabinets, they'll come and get things. But one thing you need to be aware of is that with COVID, some of the nonprofits are pulling back on coming into the home. So in some cases, we have been able to help, and I'm sure that you might have some things to comment on this, but we've been able to bring things to the garage for their pickups. But Habitat is very easy to work with. They're not picky. And Elena is a very good resource to communicate with. Biagas.
So I'd like to add to this, if it's all right. We, in our line of work, we try to stay relatively agnostic about which charity organizations we work with, because for us, they're a resource that helps us have more options to get rid of the items that are on the back of our trucks. So the more relationships we have with a variety of different organizations, the better it is for us, the better it is for our clients, and the better it is for the community. Our approach to charities tends to be, there are certain charities that have certain niches for certain types of items. So we talked about a wider circle. I can't speak to their current acceptance rate for customers dropping items off, but like one upside to them, for example, is they take mattresses. Most charities don't take mattresses for obvious reasons. There's some health issues with it, and obviously they have their quality standards, which I don't know that I'd be comfortable speaking to what that threshold is for what they would accept, but the reason they're able to take mattresses is because unlike some of the larger well-known charities like the Goodwill, Salvation Armies, and Habitat Restores, which all have their own value propositions for sure. A wider circle doesn't have a brick and mortar store where they're selling items, generating revenue to then fund their respective profits. A wider circle is just marrying those items directly to the community members. So kind of skips that brick and mortar store need. Habitat Restore, I would say, is probably the one we work with the most, and they tend to, be accepting of larger furniture more than, for example, like at least in my experience, a Goodwill or Salvation Army, who might be more inclined to take clothing or books or smaller sort of miscellaneous items that can be boxed up. So a lot of times the reason, as it was mentioned, that we have a warehouse where we kind of make the charities come to us now, that's probably the wrong word, is because when we started the business, what we were doing is we would go from one charity to the next. And the first charity would take a few items, but they would, snub their nose up at the rest of the items. We'd go to the next charity, they couldn't be happier to have it. And what we learned from that experience is that a lot of it is what the charity wants, what their focus is, and also then what the inventory is at any given moment in time. I mean, sometimes these charities are so overwhelmed with the stuff that they have that they do temporarily shut down their willingness to accept items because they've got to move their product. So these are all important factors to consider as you're considering which charities to use. And fortunately, in this area, especially, there's no shortage of nonprofits that are willing to take your stuff and let us serve as a resource for you to help point you in the right direction.
We have a document for those of you in the room called Disposal Resources, and there's lots of good information here, including other charities that he alluded to. And for those of you on Zoom, and Angelique will be emailing that to you all.
I just want to add that we work with our conjunction with our movers, which is Moyer and Sons, and in our warehouse, we do have a container that we hold for wider circle. So as a move manager, my goal is to be able to place your items efficiently and watching your dollars too. So going to all different charities, one not accepting something or the other would create more cost for you. So we try to focus on donating to one place. We often use Donation Nation because they take everything, and they're in Gaithersburg. I mean everything. And then we can glean items if you want for wider circle and hold them in our warehouse for later. But they're a great organization, but a little picky.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we've gotten all of our questions answered. So do we have?
I remember in summer camp, it used to be first sweep, second sweep. Before people like you would come in, how would we best start the process? Do you put them in liquor boxes? Do you put them in laundry baskets? Do you put them in schlep bags? What's the first place to remove something that needs to get out that you're not going to put in the recycle box?
Let me repeat the question. Like what? Basically, it sounds like you're saying, how do you get started? How do you get started?
And when you get started, where do you put?
Right. So how do you get started? And then what do you do with the stuff that you know you're not going to want to keep? Put it in liquor boxes. Do you put it in recycling? What do you do?
I always say that, get started right away. We have, like with our program, we offer free moving boxes, free used moving boxes. So if you work with us, you go to our warehouse, you pick up your moving boxes, open up the box, and make your box, walk your house. If anyone ever calls and it says, I'm coming, I'm with Purple Heart, and you have nothing, say yes, yes. And then start filling the bag. Every single week, I give away a bag of things. Every single week. As soon as it's on Tuesdays, I give it away, I start another bag. So today, just open up a box, open up a paper bag, I put mine right by the front door. I look in my closet, think what have I have not worn, and I drop something in there. So just start one piece at a time. You could use an old liquor box. You can use a bag from the grocery store. But just make sure there's always something in it. And there are resources. If you have a housekeeper, ask your housekeeper, are you happy to have these things? A lot of them are sending things home to their countries and supporting other people. They are so happy to have your things. Every week, give them a bag of things. Even food products. You have cans that are not expired, but you're not using, start declutter it.
Like we said, one bite at a time, one drawer at a time, one closet at a time, one pair of shoes at a time. And you'll just start to see it and feel it. And I don't know, personally, I just feel lighter. And I got other questions, yes.
So you don't burn out from the activity. How much time do you recommend that one spend on, let's say, a daily basis on decluttering? At one time?
Yeah, so the question is, yes, it could be very easy to get burned out doing this if you just decide you're going to do your whole house in a day. So what's the best plan? Like how much time should you spend each day when you're starting to get through the process?
So this is not unique to our company, but we had heard about the 15-minute rule, and a few of my colleagues and myself tried it, and it really does work. If you take 15 minutes and think of remember earlier I said even a junk drawer. Take a junk drawer, open it up, have your resources there for you. Trash can, trash bag, open box, and then just pick through it and decide, I no longer need this. This might be donation. This is trash. Take 15 minutes a day in each given area. It could be 15 minutes in your closet, or when you're getting ready in the morning, realizing I haven't worn that in many years, so have a trash bag there in the closet where you can slowly, take that down and just slowly chip away at it, just like that elephant, one bite at a time. It really does help. And my colleague did it with her basement, and every morning she committed to 15 minutes before working, came up with more and more each day. So, it spurs you on to the bigger projects.
You're actually saying 15 minutes a day.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Now, if you're under more of a time constraint, that's where it is very helpful to have support, whether it's friends, family, professionals. But if you start with that method, I think you'll find success.
Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Or do we have any questions in the chat?
I think we've covered most everything in the chat. Yes, Trish.
Just throw in a testimonial, if I may, and you made me think of it when you said like moving from Florida, moving from New Jersey. But we had the ability to have Erin Martinko, Tracy's partner.
Thank you.
Yes, and a precious wall of family photos that was in upstate New York, and then it was in Leisure World, and we created that exactly when my mother-in-law moved into an assisted living apartment. And so that reveal when she came into her apartment, and to have that wall with those photos, it was her new home. So just to say like how you can all help just ease the process. So
thank you. We appreciate that. Absolutely. Like I said, there's nothing more gratifying than recreating home. I had a woman once that we helped downsize, and she had a bit of cognitive, issues. But when she walked into her apartment, she said, "My husband and I used to live here."
Oh.
So there's a lot of emotion. I mean, we've cried with people, we've laughed with people, we've talked about their memories, but it's so important to embrace the significance of what they really do need to bring with them.
And that's the reason we all do what we do in the senior industry, because it is so gratifying to be a part of this important transition in people's lives. And we do it, of course, we make a living from it, but we do it from a place of passion. We just really love what we do. And I want to thank you all, both in person and on Zoom, for attending today. We put a link to an evaluation form in the Zoom chat, and then you have it on the table here in the room. Again, I'd like to thank Tracy Niro with Wise Moves, Leah Nichaman with Everyday Money Management, Brenda Moyer with Moyer Move Management, and Collin Wheeler with 123 Jump. I, again, am Jan Brito. This is Laura Quigley. We are your realtors with Capital Senior Solutions, who specialize in senior moves. And this seminar series at Ring House will continue every month, always hybrid. The next event is March 8th, here at 10 o'clock in the same room with Daniel Sanders of For Sales, talking about personal property. I know everyone in the room will be here then, right? Because we could talk about decluttering all day long, right? But going forward, we're only going to spend 15 minutes a day. So thank you again for coming, and have a wonderful day.